So I wanted to continue my video where I talked about Joe Biden and the comment he made in a Zoom meeting. The Zoom meeting was a meeting held by 7 civil rights leaders. And the reason why that Zoom meeting came into play is because Joe Biden refused to return their calls after he became president-elect. So they held a Zoom meeting with him. I didn't know all the details at first when I did my last video about it, but I had to go back and watch the Zoom meeting. And I watched the Zoom meeting as soon as I ended the video that day. I just sat on it a few days because no one is really talking about it. Shout out to Vicky Dillard. She talked about it yesterday. But the comment in question is when Joe Biden said in that leaked Zoom meeting that is now available on YouTube, this country is doomed, he says. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European, and Blacks are going to have to start working more with Hispanics who make a larger portion of population than y'all do. So that was the comment that Joe Biden made in that Zoom meeting. And there are several news outlets that came out and said that his comment was taken out of context, which I disagree with wholeheartedly, because no one in the meeting even said anything about African Americans being the doomed of this country. So why would he bring that up? He said this country is doomed, not just because of African Americans. No one in that meeting mentioned anything about African Americans this country being doomed because of African Americans. So no, his comment was not taken out of context. That whole meeting was some bull crap to me, because these people only talked about voting rights, and it was so boring. Voter rights and voter intimidation. Like, what does any of this voting rights or voting intimidation have to do with what's going on in the Black community? I don't understand that. So the 7 leaders, their objection was to help and to hold Biden's administration accountable to accomplish the progress of racial justice and guidance over the next 4 years. They think that Joe Biden is going to stop racial discrimination after over 500 years. They think that Biden has the power to change man's heart about racism. One of the guys that spoke, the first thing he said was he wanted to lift up Joe Biden for his historical commitment on racial justice. In his campaign document, Lift Every Voice, that was the name of Joe Biden's campaign, Lift Every Voice. But whose voice has Joe Biden lifted so far? The man went on to say one way to help fix racism or racial injustice is to maximize number of African Americans in the cabinet, sub-cabinet of the White House staff. and make a commitment to address racial wealth and economic gaps. So Joe Biden has a plan, or had a plan, for African Americans, and the name of that plan was Lift Every Voice. So they had several other people talk. Of course, bobblehead Al Sharpton was there. Al Sharpton said, for 4 years, Black America has been under siege in many ways. The Biden administration is going to have to first dig us out of the racist mess that we had to tolerate and deal with and be subjected to because of his predecessor. He said we have to build from there. Then he goes on to talk about his work and everybody's work in the battles with the George Floyd march and Breonna Taylor. And he asked for a Black district attorney with civil rights training and knowledge and so forth. But never once did I hear the Reverend speak of God. Never once the Reverend bobblehead Al Sharpton talk about the Most High Yah. A reverend now. Y'all reverend. But what got me was when Joe Biden spoke out. When Joe Biden started to speak, he came in with force and they all sat around and looked like he was their slave master. He came in strong. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done thus far. Number one, he said. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it. I mean what I say when I say it. He said he didn't even want to run this time. He said he ran because the racist son of a gun who is president of the United States, which was Donald Trump at the time. He goes on to say, excuse me, what the president says matter. And he said he took on white supremacy in the middle of the debate when he called Donald Trump a racist and no one wanted to talk about it. He says, listen, he says, I'm the guy, let me quote, I'm the guy that took on every single, meaning racism. I took on racism every single time somebody was threatening this country. The only white boy you know who did it, period. Every single time. I'm not making this stuff up, y'all. Y'all can go look at it yourself. I would play the audio, but I don't want YouTube all in my business. But the video is available on YouTube. I'll find the link and I'll put it in the subscription. Y'all want to see it. Horrible, horrible, horrible. How he just came in and how he started talking and how nobody rebutted or is it rebuttal? Yeah, rebutted anything that he said, especially when he said America is doomed and not because of African Americans. No one even in that meeting even insinuated that America was doomed because of African Americans. So his comment was not taken out of context. I don't care what y'all say. He said he's going to spend over $15 billion to provide opportunities for young Black entrepreneurs to help get them off the ground. Black farmers to be able to own their own property, young people to be able to get their first $15,000 payment on a home, making sure they have an opportunity to gain wealth. We can do all this. I couldn't tell if he said we can't or we can, but we can't do all this unless he might have meant can't, but it sounded like he said can. So we can't do all of this unless the Black community is able to make the wealth gap, which in my humble opinion is real trouble. Not sure what he meant by that, unless he meant that he know that Black Americans can't reach the wealth gap because of the strongholds that we have on us. We have strongholds on us, regardless of whether you believe that or not. We have strongholds on us. One lady in the meeting wanted voting rights. Her main objection or her main reasons for being in the meeting was voting rights and federal civil rights enforcement. She wanted Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to work hand in hand hand in glove with Congress to enact the John Lewis Voting Rights Enactment Act. She said it would issue an executive order to create a national task force to examine challenges to our democracy. A National Voter Access Commission task force will travel the country to identify and propose new innovative solutions to protect our democracy. These people are crazy. Anyway, I sat on this for a time because I had to think about it. No, Joe Biden comment was not taken out of context. He meant exactly what he said, which to me meant that by 2040, white people are not going to be the minority anymore. So therefore, this country is going to be doomed. And I don't know what makes him think that we have to work with Hispanics. Black people need to work with Black people. That's our issue now. Working with other people instead of working with our own. So tell me what y'all think. Like, comment, subscribe. Please leave a comment because I'm beginning to think it's just me. I'm seriously beginning to think it's just me. With that being said, it's your girl, B Sparrow, BTR 2021 Truth Radio. Holla if you hear me.